Whoa. Anthony.
Matt.
Oh, man, you woke me up.
No, this is a dream, buddy.
Well, if it's a dream, then I'm happy.
Hey, welcome back to Pillow Talk with Adobe. We're here at the Airbnb house. This is Matt Johnson. We're very lucky to have him here today. He just premiered his film Operation Avalanche here at Sundance, and he was just telling me that it's his thesis film in the master's program that he's a part of in Toronto. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. York University. Hello, Trey Zabarda. How you doing?
What's up, Trace?
She's my professor, yeah.
Oh, nice. And is that, okay, so I don't want to dive too far too fast, but is that the reason why all the old movie posters are up there? Are you like giving a shout out to Trey's with like the Strangers and like the Misfits?
No. That's actually more of just a continuation of the film geek that I play in my last film, The Dirties.
Right.
Which is a guy obsessed with movies. And it's different because the film nerd was kind of a different type of person back in the 1960s.
Right.
And so our way of trying to show that was by using all authentic posters, a lot of Orson Welles movies that were like a little bit off the beaten track.
Right.
But some big ones too, lots of Kubrick.
Definitely. So, and that plays a pretty central part in this movie as well. How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, right?
It was one of the greatest.
So let's start at the beginning. So Matt, can you tell people just loosely what's going on with Operation Avalanche and what inspired you to do it?
Sure. It's a movie about 4 CIA agents in the 1960s who are really young and ambitious and get sent to NASA to find a Russian spy.
Right.
But instead, they find out that NASA can't make it to the moon. And they start documenting their process of discovering these things.
Right.
And because they're so ambitious, they figure, oh, I know what we can do. We can fake the moon landing in the same way that, all of our movie heroes do this kind of shit.
Right.
So then they do it without their boss's permission and get in a lot of trouble.
Right.
Yeah.
And it has some similar sort of unfolding of the sequence of events as to The Dirties.
Yeah.
Which, amazing. Again, please, I'm a very big fan, man. You're doing great work.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
So there's this sort of like, it pulls you in and there's lots of humor and it feels loose and fast, and then all of a sudden things start to just go to a different, darker place.
Well, they get real.
Yeah.
I think I make movies about characters who think that no matter what they do, they're going to be forgiven and they're going to become heroes.
Right.
Right? I mean, in both
Right.
these movies, you've got guys who are kind of trying to create their own universe by making a movie about themselves. And then
Right.
as soon as they're confronted by the reality of what's really going on, in this case, they worked for the CIA, how far did they actually think they could take a fake moon conspiracy
Right.
before they actually got into trouble? As soon as they're confronted with that, everything changes, which I think is so funny because it's so much like my real life. Where
Okay, how?
Well, because think about making movies like this. I just
Yeah.
think, okay, no matter what, if I go for it and if I am positive about it, it'll work. But then all of a sudden, like I'm in NASA undercover, at any moment I could get caught and sent to jail.
Right. Story real quick. So
Sure.
on the film itself, you guys actually sort of faked your way into NASA and filmed some of your 60s looking documentary style there without them really knowing.
It was the only way we could do it because we didn't have any money,
Yeah.
and we wanted to shoot on location.
Yeah.
And NASA still has all of their stuff exactly the way it was in the 1960s.
Right.
And so we went in as student filmmakers from our school, saying that we were making a documentary about NASA in the 1960s.
Right. And then you just happen to have costumes and be dressed up.
Yeah. Well, they were very kind to us. NASA's
Wow.
amazing. And,
Yeah.
and so we were able to shoot a good portion of the film on location at the real NASA.
Right.
With impunity. It was crazy. It was one of the craziest things I've ever done.
That is crazy. And I just want to, put the mirror back on you a little bit and talk to you about that theory you were talking about, how, when you do these films and you're like, oh, you want to get away from it, but you could have been caught. But look, you're here at Sundance. You kind of are a little bit of a hero for doing some of that illegal stuff. And this is what we
Right.
were talking about before. Maybe that illegal stuff's becoming more legal.
Well, it is. In fact, the way that fair use law is working, especially for young filmmakers, if you're a young filmmaker, I think you don't be afraid of the legal restrictions that you think you have on yourself when it comes to using copyrighted things, using music, and shooting in public.
I love this advice.
Because those laws are changing every day.
Nice.
And so
And
long.
you're helping to change them as well. Right?
Well, our legal team is
Your
helping
legal
to
team,
change
yeah.
them. I'm not doing anything.
He's Canadian. He's so humble. Sorry. Keep
Right.
going.
And so I would say my best advice, especially for first-time filmmakers, is to make the movie you want to make. Just make it. Shoot it however you have to shoot it, wherever you need to shoot it.
Yeah.
And there's a good chance that a lot of the things that you think may be legal blockades are actually just new ways of shooting that may actually make your movie very unique.
Can you give us a concrete example in this film?
Sure. So our movie is about NASA, and it's about the space race, and it's also about Stanley Kubrick. So in our film, we go visit Stanley Kubrick, and we actually.
I want to talk about the tech, how you guys did that too, technically, but let's come back.
Sure.
To it. Yeah.
Well, they're kind of intertwined, and so I wanted to go and visit Stanley Kubrick, and steal his technology from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Okay.
Now, in order to do that, I wanted to show the real Stanley Kubrick. I wanted to have Stanley Kubrick in my movie, but he's dead. And so what we did was we had a genius VFX supervisor named Tristan Zarafa build Stanley Kubrick out of old photographs,
right,
without the permission of the people who took the photographs and without the permission of the Kubrick his estate.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And we were able to use it because it was so intrinsic to the telling of our story. Our movie is about Stanley Kubrick, and so because of that, we had artistic license to use those materials free of charge. And so in our movie, you actually see me getting an autograph from the real Stanley Kubrick, and it really is Stanley Kubrick.
That's crazy.
And there's another side to that story, which is that we shot in his real sets in London, in a place called Shepperton, which we also had to break into to shoot into. Yeah.
Okay, hold on. I think we have a question from the live stream audience. Yes.
Charlie Rose fan.
Hello, Charlie.
What style of music is the We Shop channel?
What style of music is the We Shop?
That's funny, Charlie. That's a reference to a television show I made in Canada called Nirvana, the band, the show. And yes, I refer to it. Do you have a Wii at all? Did you play Wii?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the We Shop channel had this amazing theme song back in like the mid-2000s,
right,
where they had a really rockin' bossa nova beat.
Yeah.
And Charlie, I'll tell you where I got that line from. A guy who runs the Silver Dollar concert series. He said it was a very danceable song, not about that song, but about a Rolling Stones song.
How does it go? How does the song go?
It sounds a lot like Hotline Bling, and so it goes like da 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 da. But it's not the same. Like, I mean, yeah.
No, it's good.
Nintendo did it up. It's a MIDI track,
Right.
but it really is bumping. Hey, yeah. So yeah, you got it. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, I remember that one. All right, so it sounds like a lot of laws are being broken, and yet you guys are finding ways to make that actually work for you. And then you used some amazing visual effects to use public image, or, well, I guess they weren't public images, but public figures, and then putting them into your movie. So I just want to make this clear for everybody watching. This film has a stylistic 1960s look because it's a fake documentary being made at the time by these CIA agents. And so the look of the film, which starts out aspect ratio-wise...
It's 4:3 black and white, shot on actual black and white, really, really old black and white stock.
Yeah.
And we shot all that on, I wish Andy or Jared were here. I think we shot it on Arri S's.
Okay.
And then as soon as the movie, that we ask our bosses for new cameras, and then they give us modified BLs that can shoot Super 16.
Right.
And then we shoot color. But we
Nice.
shot like 14 different formats for this movie.
And that's the other thing too, right? Because there's a lot of mixed, almost looks like mixed media and old footage, found footage, used footage, and then you hide footage. You're putting stuff in
the ground,
in movie tins and cans. For movie lovers, this is like a dream come true. Because there's so many movie references, there's so many internal like winks and nods. They show you movie magic. Like you guys show us in this movie how to do some of these visual effects.
Well, because that's what the movie's about. I mean, if you're going to make a movie about the guys who are going to make the fake moon landing footage,
right.
Half the joy is sort of showing how that stuff is done, especially in the context of the 1960s, when you had to do all this stuff practically.
Right. So these are all in-camera movie tricks, which are kind of like perfect for at-home movie makers.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Right. So you can even watch this movie and kind of almost use it as a tutorial for some in-camera.
Well, yeah, some of it. It'd be pretty tough for you to set up your own front screen projection setup. Like what we do is a lot of practical Kubrick stuff that he did on 2001. And that stuff you can do, but it can be very challenging.
Right.
You can't move the camera.
Well, what about the plexiglass, the thing?
Oh, yeah, that's a good trick, too.
Right?
like the zero gravity pen.
Yeah.
That's an easy one.
Yeah, totally. But useful, right?
Yes,
And it reminds me a little bit of like, and cinematographers that I love, like, Coppola, who uses old school camera tricks with some of the new school stuff as well. Because there's definitely digital stuff happening in this movie as well.
Yeah,
right?
more than people will ever know. I think there's 200 VFX shots that Tristan did.
And you would not really be able to tell.
Well, no,
They're
no.
pretty seamless.
No, he's a master.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And then I also want to talk a little bit about the improv car chase that you have in this movie.
Sure.
Because afterward at the premiere, you had sort of said to the audience, like, yeah, we had only a certain amount of time to get this car chase done.
And no money.
And no money, again. So how do we do that? So you got a stunt driver, right?
Yeah, and I told him to chase me, and then I just drove a 1965 Ford Fairlane with Andy, the cinematographer, in the back seat.
Right.
And we just did it all in one take. I think we shot it 5 times, but yeah, it was the scariest thing I've probably ever done.
Yeah, because you guys really.
Yeah, there were 2 big collisions, and then I hit a tree on a couple takes, and I drive backwards. The take where I drive backwards. But I mean, as I said before, I mean, it's my moves are improvised.
Right.
Like he's just trying to chase me, and so I'm trying to get away as fast as I could. And that's the kind of thing that you can't. This is another piece of advice. If you're going to do crazy stunts, I mean, I'm probably going to get somebody killed by saying this, but that's one of the things that you can't really do in Hollywood. Like you couldn't get Brad Pitt to drive his own stunt car, extremely fast and potentially kill himself and the cameraman. Just like insurance wouldn't let you do that.
Right.
But if you're making your own movies, I mean, again, this is like super bad advice. I'm basically saying, yeah, if you want to do crazy stunt sequences, you have to do them yourself. But in this case, we did, and it wasn't that dangerous, but the effect is crazy because you're seeing a guy drive for his life.
It's edge of your seat stuff. Like again, the movie builds to it, but man, it just gets so nerve-wracking by the end, and it feels almost claustrophobic, Kubrickian in some ways by the end of it. So well done.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit more about the improv part that you just brought up. You said
Sure.
you sort of improvise your films. How do you go about doing that? What advice do you give to people out there to help them potentially use that tool as well?
Well, I think when you're improvising scenes or improvising a film, we did it mostly out of necessity, both in The Dirties and in this movie, because we were in the real world so much, and you never know what real people are going to say.
Right.
So I know Sacha Baron Cohen has a really great writing team, and they try to predict the way people will react. And so they actually write scenes, and he will know certain lines to say depending on what people say to him.
A little bit more like a Lotzi in the traditional Commedia dell'arte.
Yeah, well, okay, you really know your stuff. Exactly. So we try to do that when we can, but most of the time, it just comes from knowing your character.
Right.
And so because I know who I am and Owen knows who he is,
right.
and Josh knows who he is, almost no matter what situation we're in, we're kind of going to know how our character would react.
Right.
And that actually saves you a lot of time because you're not needing to rehearse before you go to these places.
Right.
You can just kind of go do it, and then all the writing and directing really happens in the edit where you're looking at what you got and figuring out what can go where.
Right. We have another question from live stream, so let's get that real quick, and I want to come back to that
Sure.
as well.
John Washington.
John, Walla Walla, Washington.
He says, I left a message on your site for the Nirvana and the Band show.
You were getting a lot of Nirvana the Band
Nirvana
fans
Band
here.
show. Somebody left a message for him.
He wants to know when you're going to get back to him.
When are you going to get back to him?
To know about your new developments.
He wants to know about new developments.
Okay, so John, there's a good chance that that voicemail, depending on what it was, will be in the show, I guess. I'll give you advice if you're calling that line. Try to be as real as possible. It'll give you a much better shot of being in the show, for sure.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nice. So a little bit back to the improv stuff and finding stuff in the edit, right?
Yeah.
So how much stuff did you shoot? And
I think we shot about 600 hours, but that's over the course of a year. I think.
Okay.
And really
that's a lot of footage.
Yeah, it was quite a lot. And it comes down to sort of Kurt, our editor, and me just trying to find the most real stuff. So like when people
and how does your workflow, how do you manage that? So what are you using to sort of do all of this?
Okay, well, I mean, I can tell you the way we used to do it versus how we do it now.
Right.
So
when in the Operation Avalanche, you've got 6-plate Steenbecks.
Yeah, so but that's fake, right?
Right.
Like
totally.
I'm not actually editing the movie on film.
I know, and there's no sound happening either in any of that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
There's
because
no married couples that you can put on a Steenbeck 6-plate.
You must have gone to film school. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, of course. So
my only one little like, oh wait a second, because you guys, the verisimilitude in this though is pretty damn good.
Well, but you know what? There are optical tracks on those Steenbecks. Like we could have had optical row on those prints.
Right.
But you're completely right.
There was no silver small little row on the bottom of the
no,
thing.
there's
so
not.
It's just all image.
Yeah,
Anyway,
we faked it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Your workflow in here.
Was it crazy? So what we would do is, because we're shooting so many different formats, we would first our assistant editor would bring everything into Premiere and sync it all.
Okay.
Okay. And the reason that we were cutting Final Cut before this, and the main reason that we made this move was because Adobe lets us use every single format that we had. Because there's 11 formats in the film.
Wow.
We would even like download raw stuff off YouTube and just put it in our timelines. And we could do that because we knew at the end everything was getting bounced out to 16 millimeter. So you can have, and because Adobe doesn't render, like you don't actually need to render R3D versus like just MP4 or whatever.
Right.
You can play it all back to back, butt it against one another.
Nice.
We could.
That's so helpful.
Oh, you have no idea.
No,
it was
amazing.
basically like not possible if that technology didn't exist. And what was even more helpful is that because Adobe lets you export sequences as projects, we could just keep bouncing around. Like as Kurt would edit something and I would edit something, we could just keep sending it out to the master clip, which kept getting so big and bloated and crazy by the end, because our top layers are 16 millimeter print and the bottom layers are raw red. We would have like 19 layers of like VFX and stuff that was always changing, and I mean it was like a nightmare. It was crazy. It was like entering a labyrinth whenever you would go into to start editing. Yeah, but I will say, if you are a young filmmaker and you're a student, get an Adobe student account. We made this entire movie on Adobe student accounts. It cost us like, not $90 or something.
Oh my God. How much was the budget on this?
On the movie?
Yeah.
Well, we had about $1 million, but almost half of that went to music. So,
wow.
So
because you guys actually used some pretty well-known tracks.
Yeah. We used a lot of CCR. We used most of the sketches of the Spain album. We used
and Bad Mood Rising, by the way.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Stroke of genius.
But because our production was so insanely expensive, like we had to build a LEM, we had to get all these cars, we had to spend so much money on real stuff.
Yeah.
Our post-production budget was like nothing.
Oh man.
Students, get these accounts.
You heard it here first.
I'm not kidding. They're crazy. They're crazy. And they give you access to everything. They're nuts.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, man. So last question. What do you think, looking forward, next topic you would potentially like to make a short, a feature, or whatever you want to be making?
Well, we're making a television show in Toronto right now.
Congratulations.
That I think some people watching this are probably already pretty hip to, but
John Washington.
But it's still pretty top secret. And then my next film, I think, is about a time machine that Einstein builds for the Nazis by accident, and then he later uses to send an assassin to go back and kill Hitler. It's basically based on the video game Escape from Castle Wolfenstein.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah, it's kind of like that mixed with the plot of Red Alert, and it's like if you can imagine like the raid inside of the Wolfenstein video game. That's kind of the movie. And Werner Herzog is going to play Albert Einstein. It's going to be crazy. Just wait. I'm telling you.
Is that you can confirm?
I won't say anything. But
you can confirm that Werner Herzog.
No. I won't confirm it. But that's. I'll just
really
say.
Very much want him to play.
I'll just say that's my dream. Yeah.
Oh dear Lord, that would be the dream of many people.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that dream with us, Matt. Thank you. This has been a pleasure to get to.
It's
lay
nice
in
to meet
bed
you,
with
dude.
What a pleasure, man.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, and go get those Adobe accounts.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. Peace. There are no Nirvana the Band DVDs left if you're trying to get them. They're all gone. Okay. Bye, man. It's nice meeting you.